Ambassador Rasool, welcome to the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center. For the first part of the interview, I'd like to talk a little bit about economics, business, and trading relationships. What are the primary goals and objectives of your mission while you're here in Washington?
Look, historically, our objectives in the United States were largely political. I think that from the apartheid years, it was mobilizing people against apartheid, trying to lobby the government to be tougher on apartheid South Africa. In the immediate post-apartheid period with Nelson Mandela as president, we were basking in the glory of pioneering a new way. But I think that almost 20 years later, we realized we need to put food on the table back home in South Africa, that Africa has an economic story to tell, and that South Africa is in the best way to tell it. And so we have really prioritized for the last 2 years our economic diplomacy. And we work on a very simple slogan called opening markets and closing deals. And so opening markets means making sure that the African Growth and Opportunities Act continues to work to both the US and South Africa's benefit. And closing deals is doing some of the marvelous stuff we've been doing, like getting the Exim Bank involved in our infrastructure program, getting OPIC involved in some of the deals that's going on, getting the private companies and investors interested in the success stories of Africa via South Africa.
It really is a wonderful success story. Can you tell me how the economic downturn affected South Africa?
South Africa's economy's nature is far more industrial than many other African or even developing world economies. We're not simply a resource market. We are also a manufacturing market, so we tend to be a lot more integrated into the economies of the West, the economies of the North, Europe and America particularly. They were our major trading partners for a long time. And so while our fundamentals in South Africa may be sound, because we are integrated to America and to Europe, we find that when they go through recessions, the knock-on effect in South Africa is enormous. And so when the US went into its 2008 recession, we lost 1 million jobs in South Africa. Our growth rate came down from 5.2% in GDP to something like 3%. And so it's not because our banks were not sound. It's not because we were giving out loans in a profligate way. It was simply that our trading partners were in trouble and therefore we could export less to them. And so we're trying to recover from it, although we are confident that the fundamentals are in place to bounce back.
So fundamentally, you didn't have a housing burst and you didn't have banks over leveraging the way some other countries around the world did during this time.
I think our top 5 banks have since become the model for a regulated banking environment, because now the world sees that unless you find sensible ways to regulate the financial sector, you are always going to be vulnerable to short-term gains that banks want to make. And so today we are very happy to say that the South African banking system is the second best banking system in the world after the Swiss. But I think that it's a tribute to the way in which we've managed a good balance between free market and some regulation, where the state exercises its watchful eye over aspects of the economy.
Sticking with the theme of the economy, as you well know, South Africa has been on quite a transformational journey over the past quarter century, from apartheid to truth and reconciliation, to most recently recognition as one of the fastest growing economies in the world with the BRICS countries, Brazil, India, Russia, China. What has been the foundation for the success beyond banking?
I think the political foundation of that success is the very reconciliatory way in which we resolved our apartheid past. We understood a fundamental truth, that you don't first destroy that which you want to inherit. And so if we could receive a country with its infrastructure relatively intact, with its economy not unduly damaged, with its social systems continuing to tick over, but all of them in serious need of transformation, then your priority is transformative and not building up. And so I think that that has been the political wisdom of the leaders of South Africa and its liberation movement, particularly President Nelson Mandela. The second point is that we refused, to a large extent, to take a populist route in our economic management. We understood that you can't distribute what you don't grow. So we found the balance between growing our economy and distributing efficiently. And so we have a strong free market economy with a strong safety net for those who are vulnerable within our society. And so when you get to the age of 60 and you are destitute, there's a pension. Children, we ensure that they remain in school through a child support grant. But alongside that is an economy that continues to tick over, that's resilient, and that keeps on diversifying itself. So I think that when BRICS said to South Africa, will you join us? They were taking out a deposit, not only on South Africa, but for the African promise. They needed a reliable, secure, stable, and democratically functioning economy in Africa to almost take collection on the prospects of sub-Saharan Africa that were emerging very strongly.
Now, later this month, South Africa is hosting the 5th annual BRICS Summit in Durban. What do you anticipate the major points for discussion to be during the conference, and what would you like to see South Africa accomplish during the meeting?
Look, I think that imagine those countries all coming together in South Africa. Those countries, the BRICS countries, represent 43% of the world's population. They represent 15% of the global economy, equaling about $10 trillion US between them. And very importantly, they represent 40% of the world's capital reserves. Now, when they gather together on African soil, it is natural that the theme there should be how to develop Africa's infrastructure. And so that will be one of the major objectives that South Africa and Africa would have on the BRICS Summit, how to harness it. The practical expression of that will then be the establishment of a BRICS bank, a development bank. So how do you take those 40% of the reserves, put it into a BRICS bank, and really proliferate the emerging markets, infrastructure, its human capital development, its diversification of its industrial base, etc., integrating the emerging markets into the global markets. Now we're probably coming at a point when the North and the West are at their most humble. They have a persistent recession and may be looking at Africa, South Africa, and the emerging markets a lot more seriously, because they know that Africa as a continent has rates of return on investment of 8%, whereas the global average is 3% and the US average is under 2%. So why would you continue to invest in areas where your returns are so low? But South Africa, therefore, like it offers BRICS, it also offers northern and western economies an opportunity to enter that high return zone in disciplined, stable, and fairly guaranteed ways.
That's great news. Earlier on, you had mentioned trading partners. I'm just curious what who South Africa's major trading partners are.
Prior to 2008, it would be very easy. It alternated between Europe and the United States. And I spoke about our integration into those economies. Since 2008, China has become our major trading partner, whereas the United States remains our major investment partner. And so the United States is now number 3, with Europe being our number 2 trading partner. There is, though, a fundamental difference between what goods we export to China, largely commodities, and what goods we export to the United States, largely manufactured goods. From the simple orange that we send here, to the sophisticated Mercedes-Benz and C-Class and BMW 3 Series. So I think that we are very happy with the content of our exports to the United States. We are particularly happy with the fact that we actually have a trade surplus with the United States at this moment.
In terms of industry sectors, what are the industry sectors that you see have the most potential for growth in the short term?
You know, mining has traditionally been associated with South Africa. Diamonds, gold, platinum, a whole range of that. But you know that mining is only 3% contributed to our GDP. 15% of that is in manufacturing. That's what has burgeoned in South Africa. And so manufacturing right up to automotives. Automotives is 8% of South Africa's manufacturing output. So unexpectedly wonderful news that we have. Farming is a big employer, or agriculture is a big employer in South Africa, but only contributes 2% to GDP, but it remains a backbone of our economy. And then I think that the service sectors are moving very high. Our 5 top banks in South Africa are the 5 top banks in Africa. And we are sought after. Barclays has sought out ABSA, the Chinese have sought out Standard Bank, and so they're trying to buy into that financial services sector. And tourism is beginning to grow because I think people are finding limitations now to theme park visits. People are wanting to find destinations which A, are convenient, and you can find the best hotels in South Africa, which are good for their soul. And that is what happens when you come into contact with elephants, with rhinos, and lions, and all of those kind of things in disciplined ways. You don't become their meal. And very importantly, people need to be in touch with the history of South Africa in order to rediscover that human impulse that I think has been dulled through living too well.
In your view, how has the U.S.-South Africa relationship grown or changed since the African Growth and Opportunity Act, also known as AGOA?
The knock-on effect of South Africa and Africa benefiting from the African Growth and Opportunities Act has been enormous. Politically, it has carried us through some severe debates in the geopolitics of the world. So what it has given us a responsible relationship where we are able to differ and debate robustly what to do in the Middle East, what to do in Africa, how do we differ on foreign policy, and where are our convergences. So it has underpinned that with a relationship that says that we can have a win-win situation in our trade. And so when the United States allows our agricultural goods to come onto its market in duty-free ways, in South Africa and in Africa, it graduates subsistence farmers to commercial farmers. Then you find a phenomenon like John Deere opening, not sending any longer a tractor or two to South Africa or to Africa, but now opening a plant in South Africa to build tractors for the African market. And it allows more people to be urbanized, more industries to grow. And so Exxon Bank and General Electric and Black & Veatch and other US companies are helping now to establish our power plants in Africa.
So important to the infrastructure point that you made earlier.
Absolutely. And we believe that that is the way in which the United States benefits, because it finds an export market in Africa based on the liquidity occasioned by the African Growth and Opportunities Act. So we mustn't have a sense of it all being one-way benefits.
No.
Because the investment made when President Bush and before him President Clinton worked on the African Growth and Opportunities Act, it looked at that point like helping Africa. 10 years later, Africa has enough liquid capital to go out and to say to the USA, we now need capital goods white goods, and we need you to supply it. And so at the moment of your slump, I think Africa can purchase from you.
Should U.S. businesses consider South Africa a gateway to other nations in Africa?
South Africa has often been ambiguous about whether it wants to designate itself as the gateway. But whatever our feelings are about calling ourselves the gateway, a gateway needs a few things. Do you have a banking system that can transact 24/7? South Africa provides that. Do you have a legal system that can be globally justiciable? That when you transact in South Africa and you renege, that you can be held accountable to any court in the world? South Africa has that. Is your political system stable? Meaning, can the country run sometimes despite its government? South Africa has that. Is your democracy deep enough to make sure that the underlying social stability is in place? South Africa has proved that through many challenges and sometimes crises that we've had in our short history. And is the rule of law sacrosanct? And our constitution, our judicial system, and an alert media have guaranteed that. Now, if you qualify for all five, then the objective judgment must be that South Africa is the gateway to the sub-Saharan African economy, despite our shyness about it. And any investor knows that when you set up office in South Africa, you don't only have those five things, you also have any number of business partners who can share risk with you, help capital raise with you, and hold your hand as you, as an American investor, go into the unknown north of South Africa and participate in the energy of that economy. And so, whether we like it or not, we are the gateway.
Ambassador Rasool, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your very thoughtful remarks with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. No, it's been a pleasure just speaking to you. Thanks very much for making it easy.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Okay.